expenditures.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the January 14th, 2019 meeting of the Public Works Finance Committee for the City of Moscow, Idaho. This is our first meeting of the year. Also participating is Ann Zabala and Art Bedke. And first order of business is selection of the committee chair and vice chair for this coming year.
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, I think the first thing we need to do is the agenda was going to be amended. I think that was sent out to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So-
say anything about it being,
Well, this
or
is,
what the amendment is, but.
Here you go.
But we can do that. Well, I have the amendment.
yeah, the amendment, if I may. The amendment is that the public meeting, which is number 5 on the agenda, that was, notice for that was sent out. It was to come before Public Works Finance when it was at 4:30, so that's what the notice was sent out to. So we can still have it at the 4:30 Administrative Committee meeting, give notice at this point that it will be taken from the agenda. So we'll need a motion to amend the agenda based on the good faith reason that that public notice was mailed before council changed the meeting times.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to do so then from.
I would move that we eliminate agenda item number 5 because it's going to appear on the administrative meeting, committee meeting later on today.
Second.
Okay, I think we can all agree that that's a reasonable thing to do. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
I got it.
Okay, having taken care of that piece of bookkeeping, then we'll move on to the items in the order that they appear on the agenda, which is selection of committee chair and vice chair. In the past, it's always been whoever's the president or vice president was the chair, and
Who'd be you?
I guess that's me, and then we can, you guys can arm wrestle for the other.
No.
Do you want to play vice?
I'll play vice.
Okay, you can
Yeah.
be vice.
Okay.
You've not been vice yet.
Thank you.
I approve.
There we go.
Thank you.
So, to recap that, I guess I'm going to be the chair of the Public Works Finance Committee for 2019, and Ann Zabala will be the vice chair,
Thank you.
just to get that on the record in a concise format. Item number 2 is approval of Public Works Finance Committee December 10th meeting minutes, and so that was the only one that was on the,
But they were
Committee last
well
year.
written, so that I'm good with them.
okay?
Same.
All right, I think we can go ahead and approve those as presented.
Approval by consensus?
Right.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is the disbursement report for December 2018. Sarah Banks is going to present us with that.
Hi. All right, good afternoon. And looking at the accounts payable report for month ending December 31st, 2018, major expenditures totaled $2,182,251. Our largest expenditure is payroll, $1,029,989. And just a couple of other items probably to point out. We had 2 payments to our 3rd Street Corridor Multimodal Improvements Project. One of those was $109,769, and the other was $23,627. We had our Paradise Path Underpass construction project also with a payment of $151,482. Other than that, everything else is normal contract payments.
Just an acronymy thing. Under large expenditures, there's the Indian Hills Trading Company LLC developer funding for the Indian Hills 9th PRV. What's a PRV?
Pressure reducing valve.
Okay,
There you go.
just curious. Thank you.
So is the pressure within tolerance at this point? Okay. Good. Okay, I entertain a motion to accept the disbursement report.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're going to have to change the names on this.
Oh, we will do
Okay.
so. Thank you.
can just print your name, I guess, and since we have two people that are different.
Sorry for that oversight.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Now we have the first quarter fish.
Yes.
All right.
And we're doing first quarter financial report.
Yes. So if you, does everybody have that?
I don't have it in front of me, but I
You
did
don't have
read
it in front of you?
If you have an extra, that'd be great.
I can just give you.
Perfect, thank you.
So in looking at the report, it looks like right now the city is at about 13% for major revenues and expenses. Everything's on target. As you know, we're not in construction season right now, so our capital projects is going to be on the low side. All transfers are about at 100% or possibly over 25%, and that's because we have one-time transfers that happen at the beginning of every year with our special revenue and our internal service funds. So if it's a little bit over in the transfer, that would be why, and that should even out next quarter. And nothing else is really an anomaly at this point.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding the first quarter financial report from the 1st of October up until the end of the year?
Nope, I like the lack of anomaly.
Yeah.
We do too.
Entertain a motion to approve the first quarter financial report then.
I move.
Approve it.
Yep. Move that we approve that report.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5 has been struck from the agenda, moved to Administrative Committee at 4:30. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is 710 Pullman Road and 805 West A Street lot line adjustment. Leah Carson's going to tell us about that.
Hello. All right, so for your review today, we have a proposed lot line adjustment at the property's address 710 Pullman Road and 805 West A Street. This proposal follows a lot division that was approved on April 2nd, 2018, where the original parcel was 64,714 square feet. And the lot line adjustment is to better accommodate for the proposed buildings on the site. So this shows the existing lot sizes. So 805 West A Street is currently 21,506 square feet. 710 Pullman Road is 41,208 square feet. And the lot line adjustment proposal is to expand 805 West A Street to 28,303 square feet and reduce 710 Pullman Road to 34,415 square feet. The subject properties are both located within the Motor Business Zoning District, and within the Motor Business Zoning District, there's no minimum lot size or minimum lot width. Therefore, they're both compliant. And with that, staff recommends approval for the proposed lot line adjustment with no conditions. If you have any questions.
This is just an adjustment from the earlier one that we approved. I remember seeing this before. They just decided because of whoever the tenant is going to be, it needs to be
Right.
changed somewhat.
Yes, exactly, yeah. We received plans for development at 710 Pullman Road, and it just better fits their plans to reduce it and to develop 805 West A Street later on. So,
Anybody see any reason why we
No.
should approve that?
The owner or both parties are both in favor of, I see no reason at all to stand in the way of this one. Let's do it so they can develop it. Get rid of the weeds.
Exactly. I guess we'll recommend approval of that lot line adjustment, and it can go on the consent agenda. Great.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, Stormwater Phase 2 agreement with Aspect Consulting. Kyle Steele's going to tell us about this, and apparently Tyler's going to sit in too.
Backup dance for this one. Reinforcements.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, as this indicates, we're here to talk about something that's been in the works for a long time. We're pretty excited about, and so this is the Stormwater Phase 2 agreement, and Kyle's going to go through the history on this. Kyle supervises our Environmental Services Group, and the Environmental Services Group takes point on all of our interactions with our regulatory organizations, especially as it has to do with our environmental compliance, and that is much of what this program entails. And so I'll let Kyle go ahead and explain how we got here and what we're proposing.
Thanks, Tyler. As the council was briefed at the December 3rd, 2018 council meeting, the U.S. EPA and the city of Moscow have been discussing stormwater management, stormwater permitting for about the last decade. I think it goes back to maybe 2007. It's likely that we'll see a permit, a stormwater MPDS Phase 2 permit, by probably October 1st of this year.
NPDS is what?
The National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Program. Sorry if I threw out any acronyms, please feel free. The permit will require the city to develop a comprehensive stormwater management program. There'll be a lot of different programs that we'll have to implement as part of that. And that's going to require a lot of additional resources as well as staff to comply with. So back in 2016, the city contracted with a firm out of Yakima, Washington, Aspect Consulting, to structure and eventually develop a stormwater utility. Due to budget limitations at that time, the study was broken into 2 phases, and we've nearly completed Phase 1. So before you today is a task order with Aspect to complete the remainder of the utility formation work. The work for this agreement includes the preparation of a customer billing database, a stormwater management program budget and financial plan, the development of a user fee ordinance, and technical assistance at various meetings and workshops. Did you want to talk a little bit about the budget memo that was in the...
Yeah, I can do that. I don't know what was in the backup. There was a mix-up on a couple of different memos that I received from Kyle. This was budgeted at $125,000 for Phase 2 of the stormwater assistance from Aspect. The $184,000 that is in the budget is, of course, over $185,000, excuse me, is about, what, $70,000, $60,000 more than that.
Yeah, 60.
And we have the $125,000 budget in professional services in the sewer fund. We have a $50,000 line item for miscellaneous services in that same line item. So that would take us to 175. And then we have projects that we don't believe will move forward at this time this year. One of those is a Public Works facility planning project. So we feel that we'll be able to fund the full 185 out of the appropriated monies out of that line item. We wouldn't take this extraordinary step except that we are the EPA, should we ever get out of this shutdown of the government, we'll start working on our Phase 2 permit. And once that goes into place, we will have to make significant steps to come into compliance with whatever the permit dictates. One of the things we've talked about for years is how will we fund a fairly significant program. Stormwater regulation will require staff, it will require a plan, it will require a bunch of assessments, and it will take maintenance staff and engineering staff and equipment in order to implement that program. So we need a way to pay for that. Council, we've talked about in the past putting in place a stormwater utility program. So you'll notice one of the things in this, under the contract, one of the tasks is to assist the city attorney in developing an ordinance to form a stormwater utility. There's a stormwater utility currently in place in Coeur d'Alene. There was a stormwater utility that was put in place in Lewiston several years ago that was not significant or was not upheld by the Idaho Supreme Court for a bunch of reasons, but mostly it was because there was not sufficient science behind their utility. It wasn't tied to the benefits or the burdens that each property placed on the stormwater system, so on and so forth. Lewiston is currently reworking their stormwater ordinance and will likely move forward with the stormwater utility as well. However, these permits are typically about 5 years, and we will have to become compliant with whatever the NPDES permit dictates within that 5-year period, which means we need to develop a plan, we need to develop a way to pay for it, and we need to implement that plan and meet the permit within 5 years. So it's kind of one of those things, as Kyle indicated, since 2007, we've known we were a community of interest by EPA's stormwater regulations. They let us know sometime later that likely we were going to move ahead with regulation, and now we're at that point. So it's one of those things. It is more than we had originally anticipated, but we really don't have a choice at this point. We need to prepare ourselves so we don't get caught flat-footed without either the program put in place and the utility being formulated.
So, did the scope of work increase that substantially to justify a 50% increase in the cost to the contractors on this?
So when we developed the budget, it was a budget number, and there was a little bit of, I guess not ambiguity, but it was hard to pin down where phase 1 would end and phase 2 would begin. And then the other aspect is how much of a burden we'd be able to take on in-house. There are some of the items that we potentially can help support with staff, things like some of the public outreach, things like some of the data collection that it takes in order to formulate, where the storm lines are and what kind of condition and that sort of thing that's going to be looked at. So the 185 is at this point a not to exceed number. The actual bill could come in lower than that, but that's where it shook out when we took all those things into account, and it kind of came out of the wash that way.
Well, given that we're dealing with the EPA and under the gun, I think we need to move forward with it. But one other question, in the actual document under fee estimates, there's a header that says ODC, but it's never defined. What the heck is ODC?
Other direct costs.
I hate acronyms that are undefined.
Yeah,
It's my science background. I also don't like numbers that don't have leading zeros before a decimal point.
Yeah, if I may, I would note as well that if you look under that same fee estimate, the large expense of $94,428 is for prep of the customer database. So that's where, go back, have to check how each property or class of properties fits in, and how they would develop the database in order to formulate the ordinance and the fees.
Which is largely the crux of making it compliant with Idaho law. That's why it's really critical that we get that right, because we need to make sure that whatever we put up is defensible as far as the fees that are assigned to the properties, and so it's a very critical process.
And that's also when you indicated that staff may be able to assist in and potentially reduce that cost.
Yes, there is the potential for that. We've got, it would largely come out of engineering. Carrie Edwards is a person who would likely be helping a lot. And so as we look at competing staffing things, we kind of have to do a cost-benefit analysis of his time as well, because there's a lot of projects that we have to commit him to. And so if we have people that are very expert that can do this, there may be other things on other projects that only Carrie can do, where he saves us more than what we could save potentially on this contract. And so it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act with Carrie's time as well.
Opportunity costs, yeah.
So as far as the customer database on stormwater, it seemed like it would be really complex, because you have people that own property within the city that aren't hooked up to that don't have a sewer bill currently. In other words, vacant property that doesn't have a line on it, but they still have stormwater running off their property. So is that the crux of
There's a lot
problem?
of there's a lot of complicating issues for our system. I mean, there's things like we have the University of Idaho, which will be another MS4 in our that we flow in some places into their system, they flow in some places into ours. There are some of the items that you bring up, Jim, where there's different properties, different sizes, different load, all that kind of stuff are things that have to be looked at as we establish this. And so it's a pretty complicated process to work through.
Including stormwater detention areas and things like that in some areas, but not others.
Yeah, when you speak of the complexities of it, it's similar to our sewer system where we may be able to develop a rate based on the science that a residential property would have a certain rate, whereas a commercial property, it's a calculation of impermeable surface, how much detention is on the property and never makes it into the stormwater system. So there's a lot of those calculations that Aspect will be assisting us with. And those are the types of things that Coeur d'Alene was very careful with when they developed their stormwater ordinance, and we want to make sure that we have that same track record when we go through with this.
Yeah, and there'll be mechanisms for credits and exemptions and stuff like that,
In
so.
other words, if someone
That's
appeals and
very
said,
important.
I'm not
Yeah, we'll have that
contributing to the
mechanism in
stormwater,
place.
we're retaining it all and reusing it, we don't think we should be paying for this, then there'll be a way.
We'll have to have an appeal process and a
So I can
process
see
by
that
which
to
we
be
can analyze those
pretty
things.
complex thing.
Yeah, like Gary was saying, that's one of the reasons the Lewiston case was decided the way it was. They didn't have that mechanism in place.
When we talked about this before, Kyle, you said there's like something like 230 outlets into the creek that are stormwater outlets.
Just to Paradise Creek.
Yeah, and so that's going to be a pretty complex thing to decide whose property those outlets drain and.
Yeah. Yeah, we have an idea of some of them.
We have pretty good mapping at this point, but it definitely, the challenge has been up to this point, we really just haven't had a funding mechanism to maintain the storm system on the level that we would want. It's been largely reactionary. If we have something back up, we go out. But, you know, there's a lot of storm lines that have never seen a cleaning truck and never seen a camera. They've just been put in place and been there. And so it'll be, as Gary indicated, that 5-year process, a lot of it is going to be as we get staff on cleaning and inspecting and mapping, accurately mapping so that we can get a good inventory, develop a good capital plan. All of that is going to be a big part of that for those first several years.
If I may. You'll also recall we gave a report a couple of weeks ago that we received our draft permit from EPA. It was circulated, staff compiled, authored a response to that. There were some issues that we felt we needed clarification, or at least we needed some relief from the EPA on. That has since gone out. It's in the hands of EPA. Of course, it went out after the shutdown, so who knows when it will be read. But the point is that the process is moving along. By contrast, our NPDES permit for our wastewater treatment plant, we're still operating under the first permit we received in 1999. And it's now 2018, and we are yet to be fully, yeah, it is 19. So we're yet to be fully compliant with the mandates of that first NPDES permit. So there's a lot of give and take and working through this stuff. And we get to the point where we just don't have the technical expertise to do it. I want to reiterate again that one of the big things that this firm will be doing besides the science piece is to assist our city attorney in developing that stormwater ordinance and the utility ordinance. So there's a lot of moving parts in this process.
We'll be back to you all several times throughout the process, getting this taken care of.
Hopefully not monthly, but.
Well, given all that, I would recommend approval of Task Order 2 for the professional services of Aspect Consulting in an amount not to exceed $185,000.
Second.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I personally think this is a regular agenda item, so everybody on the council is conversant with all this, because it's a complex issue and there's likely to be a lot of public interest in it.
Happy to bring it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I don't envy you.
Item number 8 on today's agenda is Local Highway Safety Improvement Program, fiscal year 21 grant application. Elisa Anderson's going to present that for us. Good afternoon, Elisa.
Good afternoon. I also have Nate, sir, from engineering, who will be providing a short PowerPoint for us so that you can have a visual of the project we're proposing today. This is a program that we've brought forth to you for a few years now. It's the Local Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is managed by the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council that we refer to as LTAC. And this is an annual opportunity that we have that we can apply for to asked for a project to be funded where we've had some sort of either crash activity or some sort of injury accident. And the area that has been selected by engineering for the project this year is on Public Street between Polk and Orchard. And so Nate's going to kind of go through the dynamics of the project with you, and then we'll move back to the approval and the dollar amounts of the project.
Okay. And as you know, I'm incapable of talking without being able to point to something up there. So I have a small PowerPoint for everyone. Essentially, as Elisa talked about, this is a safety grant. This is essentially entirely data-driven. So we develop based on the number of crashes in the corridor and the project cost. We develop a cost-benefit ratio, and ultimately that, in conjunction with the available funding, are what determines whether the project gets funded or not. So to identify this corridor, we're looking at the area of Public Avenue between Polk and Orchard. As Elisa mentioned, it's approximately 2,200 linear feet, and right now it's a pretty simple road section. It's just two 12-foot lanes, not really much shoulder, and in fact, almost half the corridor, a little more than half the corridor, has a ditch that's either a foot or deeper on both sides. So that presents a pretty severe risk to some motorists. Some of the areas of concern, this is this is a great cross-section of what we have. Over here we have unpaved, no shoulder, drop off into a ditch. On the other side, almost a mirror image, utility poles close to the road, in addition to a curve and a relatively high-speed road for our system. And here we see injury crashes are overrepresented, and what I mean by that is this road only represents about 1/3% of our lane miles, but it's 3.5% of our total injury crashes for the period of study. So what we're seeing is, although there aren't a lot of the crashes that happen here are bad. We have a fatality on this corridor. We have multiple disabling injury crashes and quite a few evident injury crashes. And in addition to that, it doesn't have any pedestrian facilities on this entire stretch. So that's another problem. So our initial proposal is to do something similar to what we did on Polk Street, just north of this project, is to pipe the ditch, put it in a storm sewer pipe and extend the cross-section so we would have a full collector cross-section. We'd have our 12-foot lane, our 5-foot bike lane, curb, green strip, and full sidewalk. So not only would we be greatly expanding the clear zone for this, we'd be eliminating the issue of when a vehicle leaves the road that they go into a ditch and potentially overturn. In addition to that, and this picture represents why we're doing it, is we'd like to install a concrete island rather than the painted island at the Polk and Public intersection. Because if you look at these cars, this happened the other day while I was out here taking pictures, and both of those cars are turning left. They're queued up right beside each other, and I couldn't find a picture where both the turn signals were on, but they're both turning left. So the one on the inside can't see very well what's going on in that cross section of Polk there. And we do see those accidents represented highly in this intersection. So that would be one of the issues we'd want to address specifically. There we go. The total project cost we've estimated is about $1.85 million to take this corridor to compliance all the way for the entire 2,200 linear feet. A good portion of that is for retaining walls, and some of the additional, were this a flat section, it would be a much simpler, much cheaper way to go. But given the large number of disabling crashes that we have, despite the high price tag, we're still seeing a very competitive cost-benefit ratio. And to give just an idea of comparison, I provided 2019 and 2020's sort of floor for funding. And 2019 was a pretty competitive year, so that gets close to where we're going to be with the cost-benefit ratio. But if we were competing on a year like 2020, we'd be a very competitive grant with this size of ask. So, are there any questions?
And just to kind of update you on how this program works, so we submit our application this Thursday. We normally hear back from LTAC the first part of April, and then normally then it will go to the Idaho Transportation Department Board for the final approval. Then it has to go through the process of getting placed on the Idaho Transportation Improvement Plan. So it's really from the time we apply to the time the project is complete can be 4 years
Yeah,
at that
minimum
point.
of 3, yeah.
So we anticipate, based upon historical projects and looking at the transportation plan, that it would be funded for design in the city, I think I said 22 fiscal year, and then we would anticipate construction the next year. Just another couple of items. The Polk Street project that Nate pointed out at that intersection was our first LSIP award that we received many years ago. And we'll see then the one coming up on 6th Street for construction this year. And then in the 2 following years, we'll have design and construction of a 3rd Street project from basically Jackson, close to the Papa Murphy's intersection
about
there. I
that
think.
one, yeah.
So this is a program that we've highly benefited from over the years, and without it, there'd be lots of areas in town that we would be unable to improve. So, in looking at moving forward for approval, Nate had the numbers up on the screen for you, but we're requesting a total grant application project cost of $1,850,000, and we're looking at a federal funding request of $1,714,000. The match is 7.34, and so we anticipate that to not exceed $136,000. And this application is due before council on Monday, so we will be bringing it forth on the consent agenda with your approval for ratification.
When is it due, Lisa?
This Thursday.
Okay,
The
so we'll be
14th.
coming to you on the 22nd with ratification of the application. I would note as well, this is not high up, I believe, in our capital improvement program. The funding source became apparent in a grant, so we've got a couple of years to build up the match, and that's entirely doable. So I think it's a great program. Glad they identified that.
Yeah, by way of a comment, I drove that stretch many times, and that's a woefully deficient residual county road. And pedestrians are completely unprotected on that stretch. There's nowhere to go but in the ditch if there's cars coming.
Absolutely.
And I think bicyclists avoid that thing like the plague. And actually, in your first shot, I've seen a car in that ditch, like a deck of cards on its side, stuck right in that thing, and it is a mess. Downhill curves, no shoulder at all. It's a mess, and really is in big need of some upgrades. Has been for years, and I'm glad to see you spotted this one, so good on you.
It's actually the cutoff to if folks want to not go through town, they'll turn either by the fire station or on Rodeo, and then go ahead and go up F Street or Public and cut across to Mountain View. So there's a lot of traffic on that area, especially that one turning intersection going left.
It's not good, and the one fatality wasn't good on that one either.
No.
Yeah, we lost a city employee actually there, and so it's pretty close to home.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely approve the application.
You're here.
Just one question. Are we eligible for LSIP funds on an annual basis?
We have been, yes. Since the program came out, we have been, and there's several criteria that are involved there, but a lot of it is based upon the accidents and injury, crashes, fatality.
Yeah.
I
Do it.
recommend you proceed
Thank
with all
you.
due speed.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Do you want that ratification on consent or regular?
That can be consent agenda as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
Yep,
Okay.
it's a no-brainer.
Okay, that concludes the agenda items on today's meeting. We also have a report on the 3rd Street pedestrian bicycle bridge. Tyler Palmer's going to bring us up to date on what's going on there.
Yeah, at last month when we talked about the bridge, we were instructed by the council to come back with a monthly update on where things stand with the 3rd Street pedestrian bicycle bridge, and that's what I'm here to do today. We've made some good progress and had some frustrating obstacles as well, and so I'll bring you up to speed on what we've got going on. On the positive side, we expect final design this week on the updates to the bridge that we'd requested from the company in order to make it so that it would be structurally sound if and when the bridge moves. So that's what we were asking them to do, is to provide that structural reinforcement so that we can move the bridge without damaging it. They'd proposed 2 options initially. What they had been working on was a setup that would allow us to have a wooden decking system that could then be removed and then filled in with concrete when it was deemed that it was in its permanent location. That would have been workable, although it would have been more of a maintenance challenge for this particular installation. So in working with them we were able to talk to them and actually get the cost lower than that option and add some reinforcements so that we could pour the concrete decking and then just move it with concrete decking in place. And so we're pretty excited that we were able to work that out, and we expect those final designs. We're hearing Wednesday is when we expect to have those, but certainly before the week's out. We have all of the geotech work done, and so we are ready to move forward as far as that goes with the installation of the seals. That's where we get into some of the frustration in that the government shutdown is impacting us because we are unable to update the 404 permit that we need with the Army Corps in order to install this, because the Army Corps isn't working. And so we have a really good relationship with the Corps. Our environmental services group works with them a lot, and so the hope is that they will expedite this for us as soon as they are back in the office, but we're sure they'll have a backlog as well. At this point, we don't anticipate that hurting our timeline. They're installing, the bridge is anticipated to be constructed into us mid-April, and the idea is to have the seals ready so that when it's brought directly to site. We have a crane ready and we pop it right in place. And so that's what we're hoping for, but it's going to be contingent on the federal government opening and the Army Corps of Engineers approving the permit. We did go back to Transportation Commission. At the last Transportation Commission meeting, we discussed the alignment of the bridge. There had been a question that came forward about whether it would be aligned toward the center of the right-of-way or toward the north end of the right-of-way so that it would align with the separated bike lanes. And Transportation Commission unanimously recommended that it be aligned on the north end in alignment with the bike lanes, which was staff's recommendation as well. There are a lot of reasons. It's a little bit less expensive. It's more intuitive with the infrastructure. We've got the crossing with the Hawk signal going in on Mountain View, which makes that a better, safer motion, because we don't have people that are tempted to be in the middle of the road and then kind of migrate over. And so it seemed to work for a lot of reasons. And so really, all things are in place to have a mid-April installation, with the only thing out of our control at this point being federal government opening back up.
What is the estimated parking loss for installing it in the north as opposed to the middle?
Well, the parallel stalls for that last block, and I think it was about 4.
Okay.
4 stalls. It's a short block, and there's a driveway in that block, and so not too many blocks, or not too many parking stalls. We did have 2 of the residents of that block at the Transportation Commission meeting, and they were able to give their input to the commission before they made their motion. So, there's also the consideration there's a tree in place that may have to come out as a result. It's a tree that's down in the channel, and so it's not the greatest for us when it comes to flood issues, but we are going to see what we can do as far as if there's a way that we can save at least a portion of the tree, then we'll try and do that with the installation.
Where is it located in relation to where the bridge is going?
The tree?
Mm-hmm.
It's located, it definitely overhangs where the bridge is going. We haven't got stakes out, so it's hard to say exactly how much of it, but I mean, it's the south side of the tree is in line with what would be the north side of the bridge. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it has to do with, is going to come down to the excavation and, you know, what kind of root structure we get into, because if we compromise the structural integrity of the tree as we do the excavation in order to set the seals for the bridge, that's when that would necessitate the full removal, if that's what we get into.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the info.
Okay, well,
Thanks, Tyler.
I'll be back next month.
Hopefully we'll have our 404 permit by then.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, I guess that concludes all the business for the Public Works Finance Committee for today. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Let's go.
Thank you very much.